Today we're going to dive into Billy the Kid, which just finished streaming season 3 on MGM Plus. And I got to be honest, at first I didn't love this one. Going into season 1, I thought Billy's too tall, he's too pretty, and this thing is not historically accurate. But then I tried something. I stopped watching it as a historian and started watching it as a reimagination, which is exactly what MGM sells it as. Now, don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I loved everything about this show. I mean, for a little while, it kind of drifted into CW teen drama territory a little too much for my liking. But I think in later season 2 and definitely season 3, it kind of found its footing and had that more gritty Western feel to it. And then there's the writing for Pat Garrett. Now, don't get me wrong, Alex Rowe absolutely crushed it in this role. Each and every time he's on screen as Pat, he steals the show. But there's no denying in season 3, they tried to do a little too much, a little too fast. And I understand they've got to wrap up the story. They've only got so many episodes they can do it in. But they made such a dramatic character shift in such a short amount of time that it was hard to believe. Pat Garrett went from this guy who had hunted Billy the Kid precisely, and it was so impressive the way he had done it, to a bumbling idiot by the end of the show. And it just didn't make a lot of sense. But overall, Alex Rowe's performance was one of my favorite parts of this entire show. Now, if I'm being honest, my knock on Garrett's writing is very small compared to this next one. That's the recasting of John Tunstall. In season 1, they did a great job casting a young man who looked very much like Tunstall and was very close in age. But then when you start season 2, you find he's now played by a much older gentleman, a father-like figure to Billy, similar to the way Young Guns did it, and there was no reason for it. We already had a good Tunstall, and now you've changed him to someone who looks nothing like the original. He's not close in age, and it killed the realism. In fact, I almost stopped watching at that point. It was ridiculous. But fortunately, for obvious reasons, Tunstall's not in a lot of episodes moving forward, so it's one of those things you kind of forget about as the show goes on. That's enough about what I didn't like. Let's talk about what I did like, and first and foremost was Billy the Kid. There was a lot of times early on when I wanted to turn this show off because of some of the historical liberties they were taking. But the one thing that kept me glued to the TV and kept me watching was Tom Blythe's performance. He carried himself with a confidence. His Spanish was smooth. He could handle a gun. He looked like he belonged in Lincoln County, New Mexico. I credit Tom for taking the time to spend a week walking in the footsteps of Billy in New Mexico and really diving into that character. And I think he did such an incredible job. I'll just say it. He's my Billy the Kid. I'm sorry for all you Emilio fans and you Young Gun fans, but when I think about Billy the Kid on screen moving forward, it's going to be this performance. And speaking of performances, you can go up and down the list of this cast and point to a number of different performances that really move you throughout the series. But one of the biggest ones was Jesse Evans, portrayed by Daniel Weber. The character arc of Jesse Evans is one that I never saw coming. At first, I wasn't a big fan of the bromance between Billy and Jesse. But the longer the story goes on, man, the more it reels you in and the more emotions you feel for that character, Jesse Evans. Sometimes you're going to hate him, sometimes you're going to love him, and sometimes you're just going to feel sorry for the guy. But ultimately, he makes you feel something. And the same can be said for a lot of guys on this cast. I remember getting to the end and seeing who's left and feeling a sadness for all the supporting characters that we lost along the way. Just incredible acting, incredible cast top to bottom. Now, my favorite thing about this series was the reimagined ending, because it was a lot more fun and a lot more satisfying than the way things really went down. But if you're just going to nitpick at historical inaccuracies and what they got wrong, this thing probably won't be enjoyable to you. But if you want something that keeps the Wild West alive and pays tribute to one of our greatest legends in Billy the Kid, it's worth a watch, and I think you'll enjoy it. But do me a favor, like and subscribe, and leave me a comment and tell me what you think of the series.